All right, being 6 o'clock, I'm going to call the Coos Bay City Council meeting to order. Would you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Well, welcome everyone. It's good to see the crowd. So I hear a rumor that the consideration to pursue acquisition of a state surplus property land in East Side is maybe why many of you are here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this up to this next agenda item. So we can address it. You're more than welcome to stay through the whole meeting. I'd love to have you stay. But if you don't and we are able to resolve any concerns, we'll do it now. So Nicole, you want to address this?
Yes, I will start us out, and then Councilor Farmer, if I miss something of value, you're welcome to step in. So under Executive Order 2302, the governor established a process by which
One moment. I just want to make sure everyone knows that we have two counselors on virtual, Carmen Matthews, Councilor Matthews, and Councilor Stevens, and Councilor Kilmer, I would imagine, is going to come. I haven't heard. And Councilor DeNovo is not going to be able to make it. So sorry about that. Go ahead. Thanks.
No worries. So again, Executive Order 2302 established a process by which communities could address homelessness and or the housing crisis. And an element that we, under Councilor Farmer's effort, has been uncovered is state surplus lands, if identified, could then be moved through a process a little bit quicker at the state level for surplusing that land and making it available for potentially housing development. In the city of Coos Bay, one state agency has identified a piece of property. It is in East Side. It's owned by currently the Department of Transportation. And initially, our understanding was that that acquisition would be potentially at a lower amount and also an easier process. What we've now learned is that we would have to, at our cost, perform an appraisal, have some survey work done, and then be responsible for paying fair market value for that property. So knowing all of those things, we've now bringing this before council so that there could be a discussion and decide. It seemed a bit different to maybe acquire the property for $10,000 versus potentially, $100,000 or more, depending on appraisal, plus those additional costs. So it's coming before you to have that discussion and make a decision on there. Our intention, I believe, again, Councilor Farmer can step in, was to make it available for housing development.
And also there's some land use issues, I understand.
Yes, so our community development director did look at that specific parcel and identified several issues that, though they would be able to be worked through, would be a process. So we'd have to do a land use process, some other steps that might be a little bit more challenging as well.
Okay.
There's also no infrastructure. I mean, there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle to make this parcel developable.
Drew, you want to make any comments?
Sure. So the process, I had been invited to speak to the governor's transition team when they came through before Kotek took the position. I had proposed to him surplus state land for housing because we had done that in Coos Bay. As you see with the townhomes that are over in Empire, we were able to provide our city land to a developer. In exchange, they met our requirements for time frame and development and number of units. So that was what I proposed to them, and in the executive order that was passed, it was offered to anybody that wasn't a rural county. So they left about 80% of Oregon's land out of a state land study. So that was what I worked with Boomer Wright and we got back. With the additional hurdles they've shown, I would probably put it back on the back burner, and I will need to follow up and see if they're putting the metro areas through these same hoops, because they already tried to exclude us from the opportunity, so I would be suspect of what they're doing. And the infrastructure aspect, I know that's a conversation about funding in the next legislative session. So right now, with all the things they've thrown up in front of it, probably not a great idea, but I'll keep playing with it on the other side.
Well, so I can tell you from my perspective, and then I'll ask the other counselors, I have no interest in pursuing this under these conditions. And the only way that we were interested at one time where I was, because it could become potential housing. We did a piece of property up in Empire, the same thing. We found a developer, they built some houses on it, and it came back on the tax rolls, and we were able to make it productive. In this condition, in this situation, that's not going to happen. Second of all, I had no interest whatsoever to have this be used for any homeless issues at all. So, that being the case, I have no interest in pursuing this any further. If we were able to get it at the $10,000 where they purchased it, and they want to surplus it for that, there would be an interest. But under these conditions, it's not feasible, and there's no developer that we could find that would be willing to step in under these conditions. So, anyway.
Yeah.
Troy, you have any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was my intent, that if we were to get this, we were going to get it at a pretty reasonable price that we could then clean it up and turn it over to the developer to build housing.
Carmen, Sarah, either one of you?
I'll just say that I appreciate us exploring all of these potential solutions around housing, but I agree with your assessment, Mayor Benetti.
I second that.
Stephanie, I know you were late, just showed up, and so we're in the middle of discussing consideration to pursue the acquisition. There's some individuals from East Side, quite a few, that are here, and with understanding that we might be pursuing it, so.
Well, I appreciate that folks showed up, and I did get a few calls today, so, sorry, I just ran up the stairs, so I didn't catch my breath. I'm not a runner. But you know, looking at the information, it doesn't seem feasible to me to pursue.
Okay, so under that scenario, since you're here, if you want to make a comment, I'm going to open up the public hearing on this item. So if anyone wants to come forth, make a comment.
Is it a hearing?
Okay, I'm going to open public comment.
I just had one other thing
ahead.
to add, and I think it's important to note that some of the conversation that happened today was that it was and I don't know what was discussed before I got here, that this was something to pursue, moving the Devereaux Center, and it always seems that's what it comes back to. But I think it's important to note that not all people who are homeless, it could be that they just don't have a house to live in, or they can't access housing. And so sometimes housing is not temporary, it's creating housing so that people who are homeless, because they can't get into a home because there's nothing available. I just think it's important to note that developing housing will help that situation as well.
Well, and what I had proposed to the state was what we did with the fire lot. So it was anybody that could make the number of units within the amount of time. And the proposal was to match what Coos Bay already showed as its commitment, and the state decided that it is not so committed. So now I get to talk to them more and Boomer more.
How this came about is the governor wanted housing to be developed in the state of Oregon, and so she asked that surplus property be put on the market in all the communities throughout the state so that housing could be developed. So anyway, with that being the case, you've heard our comments, so you're more than welcome, if you'd like, to make a public comment about this. I know that some of you showed up for it, so you're more than welcome to come up, give us your name, where you reside, which city, and your comment. You have 3 minutes if you'd like. Anyone?
My name is Linda Mill, and we live on Applewood, my husband and I do. We just heard today from a neighbor, and, it was all speculation on what was going to happen, so we had no idea. After listening to this, I just want to thank you for your due diligence in looking at the situation. I mean, we do live right across the street from that area of land, and it is a beautiful area of land, and I know we need housing. I also know we have a homeless problem, and we need a homeless solution. We also have a drug problem, and we need a drug solution. And I really hope that moving forward, I can see you do your due diligence and as a community member all these years, yeah, we need to solve some of these issues. So I would have liked to have heard about it sooner. I don't know how that happens or doesn't happen. We don't really have like regular news, you know, that's partly our fault, but, yeah, I would have liked to have known the whole issue.
Yeah,
So-
it was just put on the agenda, and before that, the city manager and Mr. Farmer, Councilor Farmer, had brought this before us in other discussions, and so we decided to pursue it. When it got to the point where there's kind of action need to be taken, then it was brought for a discussion, and what all we needed to do. If it would gotten to a point where we would have taken more action, I think we would open up, especially for a public hearing, and get some comments and feedback before we take an action on it.
Oh, that would be wonderful, yeah,
Right.
to have that kind of
Yeah.
exchange.
If it gets to that point, we'll make sure we have a public hearing and take more comments about it. But anyway, yes.
I would just add that, you know, it is maybe challenging to get some news, especially if you don't have local news stations. But you could sign up for the city's newsletter,
Oh.
and that would give you access to these agendas coming out to you directly via
Oh.
email. You wouldn't have to go find them. They could
We
come
certainly
directly
would
to you.
do that, yeah, that's
Yeah.
great. That's great news.
So if you go on our website,
Uh-huh.
there'll be a pop-up that gives you the opportunity to sign up.
Okay, and we love East Side.
Yes, as long as it's about this issue. It is. Okay, thank you.
I'll tell you when you have one more. I'm Darrell Barr. I'm a citizen of Coos Bay, a resident, and I have sympathy for homeless. I was homeless myself after Vietnam for over a year, but I got my shit together and got a job. I went to college and got a job. I have so much empathy for the homeless, but it can only go so far before I start sacrificing my daughter's future and other people's future. If they don't want to get off the drugs like I did, and many homeless have,
Sir, is
Yes.
it about the East Side property? Your comment?
well, there was about, you were talking about Devereaux Center.
No, no, just about the East Side property. Public comments is at the end of the agenda. I allowed public comments on the East Side property only because so many people showed up. And if they
Right.
wanted to voice a concern on the East Side property, then we would do that. So your comment can be made at the end of the agenda.
Okay, I was,
All right.
I was
So-
just, okay, I was
Okay, thank
thinking
you.
that, all right.
That's right, thank you. Anyone else want to talk about the East Side property?
And my apologies, I did bring up the Devereaux Center only because that's the phone calls that I received today, was that this was a project of the Devereaux Center, and I was just trying to point out that it was not.
Okay, anyone on the East Side property, comment only. Okay?
I'm Chris Castleman. I live just outside the city limits, near Eastside. I also fielded a lot of questions today about this. I had actually seen it on the agenda and looked at all the documents on the agenda. I even visited the site, currently partially underwater. And I saw the executive order 2302, and I read a little bit about that, and it was a lot about homelessness. So when people were asking me like, hey, is this going to be where they're going to move the Devereaux Center? Or are they going to build homeless projects there or something? And I honestly, I mean, I said, no, not the Devereaux Center. I haven't heard anything like that. But I couldn't honestly answer it and say definitively, no, it's not going to be a bunch of, pallet homes for homeless people, because that executive order has been used for things like that in the past. So maybe next time some clarification in the, the agenda cover sheet that explains like more specifically exactly what it was. I know hindsight's 2020, but that would have helped all of us. The other thing that is confusing to some people was like, why would we go out and buy land, even if it was for 10 grand? When the city owns land, like I know they own like 40 acres behind Cascade, and they own some other parcels back in like the water district land. They own, like you guys own lots of acreage. So like, why would we not pursue projects in there and instead of going out and buying new land? That was just a thought I had, and people shared that concern, so.
Thanks, Chris. So to answer his point, the executive order does say homelessness. And so I guess the possibility could be, if the council decided that would be, I can tell you from my perspective, and I'm not sure the rest of the council, but my indication is that it was for housing, not for homelessness or that type of situation. So that doesn't mean that it couldn't happen or couldn't be changed by this council. They could take that direction. As far as
when I requested the exemption, it was actually specifically for housing.
Right.
So there wouldn't have been another use in the alternative without more changes to the governor's order.
And so just to, I don't want to get too far afield here, but to address Mr. Councilman's other comment about surplus property that we have, the one by the water board is a joint ownership of the water board of Coos Bay North Bend. We don't have any oversight on that property unless we were to, both cities were to do something to change that agreement with the water board for development. So that's a watershed that we've allowed the water board to do, and this was something that the two cities did quite a few years ago. The 40 acres by Cascade Farms, I didn't realize we have any surplus property up there. I thought that was school board property.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything which we have deemed as surplus yet.
Or
I
that
think
we
those
own?
are
Do we own any property?
conversations. I think we have some ownership of land there. Details of which I don't know. I'd have to look them up.
Okay.
It's not been on my list of things I needed to learn so far, but I think when we look at where we can help in the housing crisis and development, when we have the opportunity to look at all of those land, I think those are on the table if that's something you guys want to talk about. But
So can you find out if we
Yep.
own some property up there?
yep.
Okay, we'll look into it. All right. All right, anyone else on the east side property? All right, that being the case, we're going to move on with the rest of the agenda. We'd love to have you stay. If you don't, we totally understand. All right, next item is to acceptance of the April 2024 financial reports, the consent calendar, which is the financial reports and check register.
I move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to accept the consent calendar as submitted. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Okay, Marshfield High School update, Harper Thompson. Good evening.
Move that up a little bit. Here, let's do this. There we go. Hello and good evening, city staff, councilors, and Mayor Benetti. This is a bittersweet moment as this is my last presentation as the Marshfield High School and Coos Bay School District representative, though I'll save my heartfelt sentiment until the end in an effort to keep my composure for as long as possible. As the year is nearing the end, I have many incredible announcements to share to the council to end the year off. To start us off with some wonderful news from the school district, last week the district announced the appointment of Dr. Justin Ainsworth as superintendent of the Coos Bay School District starting July 2024. Dr. Ainsworth is moving from Alaska, where he was an associate superintendent of curriculum and instruction, and has reported he is thrilled to be back in the area to be with his family and serving the community he loves. We have some amazing updates from the Marshall track and field team. They spent this last weekend in Eugene at Hayward Field for the 2024 OSAA Track and Field State Championship, with our boys taking second place behind Kirk County and above Pendleton in the 4A category. And a special shout out to Daphne Scriven, who was our lone female competitor for MHS. Over the weekend, she competed in shot put and discus, taking third overall in discus. Daphne is a two-time state champion in the discus and will be attending Weber State University, a D1 school where she will compete in their prestigious track and field program. Overall, a tremendous weekend for all of our athletes who competed, and just what a wonderful way to end the season. It has been an absolute honor to compete with the team over my past 5 seasons, and I will hold so many of those lessons I learned there with me for ages to come. Now moving on to some Marshfield ASB updates. On May 2nd, Marshfield held its senior prom in the Pirate Palace from 8:30 to 11:30. I will just say personally that I left with my friends with a minimal amount of hearing loss and a night full of unforgettable memories. Marshfield ASB also held elections last week for class representatives and officer positions. For the office of vice president, Chase Steele Carpenter was elected, and for the office of president, Tatum Montiel was elected for the 2024-2025 school year. Finally, tomorrow, May 22nd, Marshfield is hosting the 2024 MHS Scholarship Assembly, where applicants will find out their scholarships and be recognized along with MHS students, staff, board members, and members of the scholarship committee. This year I've also been informed that over $500,000 will be awarded in total across all of the applicants. Moving forward one day, May 23rd, the MHS Choir will be holding their final concert in Marshall's Auditorium, along with a plethora of other schools, so it's safe to say Marshall's campus will be quite busy later this week. Also in the auditorium on May 29th, Marshall will be hosting our end-of-the-year awards assembly to recognize departmental awards, along with attendance, community service, and many others. Also, just a quick note, Marshfield Z Club will be announcing the recipients of their Community 101 grant in the coming weeks, so keep an eye out for those announcements and what organizations receive those grants. Now for the updates I know you've been waiting so patiently for. So what's going on with Key Club? Personally, this has been one of the most bittersweet and sad weeks for me, as this last Saturday we held our last major event of the year at Marshfield Key Club's Pirate Park, doing some major gardening and weeding, along with scrubbing virtually every touchable surface with soap and water. We ended the event with a barbecue and potluck with our members and students and members of several other clubs at Marshfield. And on a personal note, bringing a barbecue down from the MHS Stadium, if you've ever been down to Pirate Park, the actual parking lot, that hill is treacherous. You might want to get on that. But a barbecue that wasn't our club's and in a truck that wasn't mine was without a doubt the most stressful thing I've done in my tenure. And yes, I mean more stressful than our hour-long phone call with our insurance company to obtain an updated COI for the event. I now know what a COI is in general, the things I do. Nevertheless, I'm beyond grateful for the clubs and organizations that help make it possible. So I'd like to thank, of course, the Marshall High School Booster Club for use of their barbecue and propane, and a huge thank you to the Coos Lions Club for donating over 320 hot dogs and buns and over eight boxes of 150 chips. They were about that big and about that tall, all of Lay's, so we keep it classic. It is safe to say our club will be eating pretty good for the remainder of the year, and any leftover frozen items will be donated to the Devereaux Center to ensure none of the food is wasted. Also in Key Club news, probably the most hard for me was the election of the 2024-2025 Officer Board. On Monday, May 13th, the Marshfield High School Key Club House of Delegates convened at 12:15 p.m. to elect the 24-25 Officer Board. We had several candidates for all positions. Before voting, all candidates had an option to speak on behalf of their platform once more to the club before we proceeded to vote on individual officer positions. After all the votes had been tallied, we announced the officers-elect, and as president and elections chair, I began to draft Resolution 2024-25, which certified the results and alerted Bay Area Kiwanis, the PNW Key Club Board, and Key Club International of the successful uncontested election process and results. This new board will now undergo the PNW Officer Training Conference and other transitional duties before they officially take office on May 27th, 2024. Okay. These past 5 years I've been involved specifically with Key Club have shaped my life going forward and moving into young adulthood in the real world. I'm ever so grateful to have been afforded the opportunity to learn, and I'll say that again. I stand before you today in this capacity as an individual who was afforded the opportunity to learn, grow, make mistakes in an environment that was willing to teach me. Whether that was applying to the PNW District Board of Key Club International or my application to be appointed the Bylaw and Policy Chair of PNW Key Club and serve as a delegate on the Key Club International Policy Committee, or whether it was an email I sent very nervously nearly 2 years ago to a former city manager asking if we could bring back that silly old tradition of a Key Club member giving a presentation at the bi-monthly city council meeting. I'd like to take a second to give some thanks to the people here in the room who have helped me be an ever-improving speaker and representative. Nicole. Or should I say Nicole Rutherford, City Manager of Coos Bay, Oregon. When Nicole and I first met in her previous role as Assistant City Manager, Roger was of course the one who got to say yes, and Nicole got to deal with all of my questions, emails, and plenty other types of inquiries. And earlier this year, I had the honor to ask her for a letter of recommendation. Nicole, thank you for making me feel welcome and prepared, and answering all my emails in a very timely manner, I will add. I'm so truly grateful. Christine is the reason I've had many of the speeches in front of me, and she now gets to deal with all of my emails and questions, and she does it all with a smile and a sense of passion and caring. Christine, you've saved me from looking like a fool or having to read from my phone a few too many times, more than I'd like to admit. And even seeming so minuscule, you helped an anxious teenager calm down when he was nervous and scared, and for that I cannot thank you enough. And to the entire council, at the beginning of last year when I began giving these reports and presentations, I would sit out in my car and be so scared to stand here before you. Well, it was actually over there, but I digress. Some part of me was frightened to the point where I would be shaking moments before I would speak. But shortly after I began presenting to the council, I was in the newspaper about my reports, and I started getting comments on my social media posts from members of the council. Your kind and genuine words, either directly or indirectly, made me lose that sense of fear and nervousness. Wow, where are we at? Since I had before speaking. And then I knew you actually cared and you were actually interested. And for that, words aren't enough to show my thanks and appreciation. Because I am now able to take my skills that I have learned to my other various positions. For example, I would have never had the courage to speak and testify on bills in our last 2 state legislative sessions if it was not for the confidence you all and everyone here instilled within me. I'm now ready to start this new chapter of my life, knowing that I had one of the best possible experiences doing things I know, love, and see myself doing for the rest of my life. But before I go, and before you get rid of me, I'd like to humbly ask for a picture with everyone after the adjournment of this meeting. And for the very last time, representing the amazing Marshfield Senior High School and the incredible Coos Bay School District, city staff, and members of the council, I thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So Harper, first of all, I've enjoyed your updates and reports. They're always enlightening and they're fun to listen to.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure to have you here. I wish you the best on your next chapter or your endeavor. And remember, you always can come back and visit.
Of course.
And we'll be glad to take a picture, I'm sure, of the council.
Thank you.
So, all right?
Thank you.
Could we
Yes,
do that
definitely.
now?
I don't
Or do
care.
we have to wait till the end?
It's up to you.
I mean, I'll be here at the end.
And you want to stay through the meeting?
Yeah, I always stay.
Okay.
You know me, Joe.
All right.
You're funny. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so Councilor Matthews did some research and he found 40 acres that the city owns. So if you could find the status of that 40 acres, then we would know what we could or could not do with it. So
Was that 40 the ones we were trying to get that 400 unit development on, or was that a different one?
I think it's a different one.
Okay.
Anyway, we will find out, so. All right, that being the case, we're going to move on, and the next item is presentation by wastewater rate consultant Steve Donovan. He's back soon, and it's good to see you, Steve. Nicole, you want to give us the introduction and the highlights on this topic?
I'd be happy to.
Oh, Jennifer, sorry.
So
Okay.
at the May 9th budget meeting, the Budget Committee requested a further discussion regarding the sewer user fee increase for fiscal year ending 2025. The budget that was prepared for FYE 2025 for the Water Quality Fund 3 and the Capital Sewer Fund 29 were both based on a 6.5% increase in sewer rates. However, according to the city's rate consultant, Steve Donovan of Donovan Enterprises, this may need to be increased to account for upcoming expenses in the future. So Steve Donovan is here today to present his findings of his current rate study and answer any questions that the council may have.
All right, so, Dr. Christine, you make sure all the budget members were notified?
Yes, I did. I invited them all.
Steve, welcome back.
Great. Mayor, councilors, thank you. Steve Donovan, 9600 Southwest Oak, Suite 335, Portland, Oregon. It's said that I've been here for about 10 years. Jim hired me in 2007 when we both got out of middle school. And we've been doing this. Stephanie, I think you were here then? Yeah. So we got some history here. And what we want to talk about tonight is your 2025 budget and the impact it's going to have on rates. And we've got a PowerPoint presentation that we're going to run through with you. It should be in your packets. You should be able to follow along on paper. Some of the fonts might be a little small. Go ahead, Christine. So, want to talk about what changed, because in January we gave you a quick update and we weren't talking about 6.5%. We were talking more like 5.5%. So we'll talk about what changed relative to the 2024 budget. We're going to talk about an updated forecast. It's been the policy of this council to have long-range planning for its utilities, and it's been a policy for many, many years, and we've been using this as a tool for the council. And Mayor, you've always been a big advocate of small, regular, predictable rate increases, and that has borne fruit for this city and this council. And next, we're going to talk about what Jen had talked about is the unknowns. Remember, there's known knowns and there's unknown knowns and so on. Well, there's 3 key unknowns that we want to visit with you on, and then we'll look at the rate profiles that are going to come out of this and something for you to consider. Go ahead, Christine. So, 425, the first box on the left, total enterprise, and you are an enterprise, by the way. I was looking at your audit and some of your financials. Your sewer utility is a pretty robust construction company. It generates $10 million a year in revenue. It has $60 million in net assets that are basically underground or out of sight. You have, over the last 5 years, you've spent over $19.8 million, or about $4.5 million a year on capital investments in your infrastructure. And I know that you've all got a key interest in infrastructure, that livable cities can only be as good as the infrastructure that supports them. You have principal outstanding on long-term debt of $30 million that's going to grow once we get Plant 1 recompleted. You have a service population of 16,000 people that you're responsible for their health and well-being. This is a pretty substantial construction company on its own. If you just tore it outside of the city, it would be a pretty freestanding and significant enterprise within Coos Bay and Coos County. So, like I said, $9.9 million in enterprise expenditures. This year, we're bringing up 2 new loans that had not yet been finalized, but that are now final and will be in payment. In other words, principal and interest payments will be made. The first one, R24001, that was the 6th Avenue and the Green Parking Lots projects. You're all familiar with those. Price tag on that project came in higher than we thought. I think it was $5.7 million, and it's going to generate $340,000 a year in principal and interest payments. We had budgeted for this 5 years ago. We knew this was coming. This was not a surprise. The second one, R24005, is the Englewood project, the Brownfield project. You were able to leverage your strength with the DEQ funding program to get that brownfield remediated. We were going to do 2nd Avenue, but we did not do that. It's limited to Englewood. It was $900,000 is about. The principal and interest on that loan will now be $50,000 at 1% interest. Both of these loans are 1% interest. So you folks hit it out of the park on these. The dark side of the force here is you got to pay the darn loans back. Don't you hate that? So, but we had that budgeted and we knew that was coming. What changed? Because of the reallocation of costs between all funds, the sewer fund saw a 30% increase in personal services, a 23% increase in materials and services, and because of the new debt service rolling in, 14% increase in debt service. How are we going to pay for that? Some of it is going to be through a rate increase. Most of it is going to be paid for from drawdown on reserves. As of July 1 of 2024, we think you're going to have a fund balance of about $7.5 million. By the end of this fiscal year, June 30th, 2025, that should be down to about $5.1 million. This is just another kudos to you, the council, for those prudent, regular rate increases that you've done over the last 10 years, built you to a position where this enterprise has the strength to take punches as it's done. But we can't keep taking punches forever. We can't keep doing this, and you know that. So, Christine, next slide. So here are the key assumptions. We've recrafted the 5-year forecast. We actually have a 10-year forecast that we'll present to you, but the first 5 years are the ones that we have the highest confidence in. We assume that the 2025 budget appropriation levels that we've got now will continue. So those increases that brought our appropriation levels up, those are going to be the new normal. Inflation. This is going to be something that we don't control, and we'll talk about the unknowns in a second. Salaries at 3%, PERS, the employer contribution to employee pension plans at 6%, health insurance at 5%, and materials and services at 3%. In terms of capital activity, the focus, the singular focus, is going to be on the completion and reconstruction of Plant 1. That has got to be the singular focus of the city. This is a generational project, much like Plant 2, the reconstruction of Plant 2 was. You have a uniquely complicated sewer system here. One of the most complicated I deal with across the United States that I deal with. You have 2 wastewater treatment plants, and we'll talk about the risks on those in a moment. The plant loan repayment, we think you're going to finish the project in '27, but we're not going to pay it back until '28. That is to be negotiated with the DEQ. I've done that with other cities where we need the time, is what I'm telling you. We just took a belly punch here on our costs, and in order to have level regular debt service or rate payments, we need that another year, and I think that's not going to be that difficult. And Jennifer, she can sell used cars, so she'll negotiate that just fine. The other thing that, Mayor, I know you're you're disconcerted about this, is normally we do annual budgets for emergency projects, about $1 million a year. We don't have room for that if we want to stay within this rate profile. So we're going to have to live with whatever cash we've got in our fund balances as our, quote, emergency reserve, rather than explicitly budgeting for it. Something to consider. Emergencies happen. You have a very complicated system. And then on the reserves, over the next 5 years, like I told you, we think you're going to have about $7.5 million on July 1st of this year. By the end of 5 years, we're going to draw that down to $4 million. In Fund 29, the construction fund, you've got $5 million in there now. We're going to draw that down to just about $600,000. Keeping in mind that you've got budgeted for this year $17.3 million in capital expenditures that you're going to kick out the door. So you are taking care of your infrastructure. Go ahead, Christine. So, the unknowns. In this business, there are 3 buckets of unknowns. There's market risk, there's technology risk, and there's regulatory risk. Now, on the market risk, inflation, it does appear to be sticky. It has come down substantially. A year ago, the annual increase in the construction cost index, which is what we use, it's an engineer's news record, was about 7%. As of this year, it's down to 2.2%. So that's very encouraging. The composition is difficult, though. The cost of materials, steel, concrete, rebar, has rapidly come down. The cost of labor has not. The cost of services has not come down as fast. That's what's sticky. Healthcare premiums, I'm going to be real devious with you here now. You'll see, I show from 2009 to 2023, 15 years worth of data. It's growing at a compounded annualized rate of 14.7%. Same thing with PERS, 12.7%. But I'm a liar. Remember what you did years and years ago? You outsourced the operations and maintenance of your sewer systems to OMI. And you had very low levels of employees using PERS or paying health insurance. In 2021, that changed. You brought it in on board, so you hired in a bunch of employees. That cost went up a bunch. So like Mark Twain said, there are lies, there are damn lies, and there are statistics. These are statistics. It's a bad comparison, but it is showing that those 2 costs that you don't control are by far and away the highest increases in your cost complement. And then workforce retention. Everybody is facing this. We can't keep people, we can't get people. I don't know where they went, but I've got it all over the country that we can't get qualified electricians, we can't get qualified millwrights. Just basic good labor, skilled labor is difficult to get and difficult to retain, and you need to do that. And you've got a good complement now, and you need to pay them, and you need to retain them. And then energy costs, always the wild card. We don't know what they're going to be, but they fluctuate like crazy. Look at gasoline prices. Technology risk. Plant 1, reconstruction. We're digging holes out there right now, but you're replacing something that's working. So, you know, I've told you this before, it's the equivalent of changing the blades on your lawnmower while it's running. That's what you're asking your engineers to do on Plant 1. Plant 2, outfall. That's a particularly risky technology issue. It's marine construction, and not only marine, it's underwater construction. We're replacing an outfall and diffuser mechanism in the Pacific Ocean. It's going to be risky, it's going to be difficult, it's going to be expensive. Right now, I think we've got it at $4 million, $4.6 million. I wouldn't be surprised if that cost doubles. And as you get in the water and you find out what happens, it's that much more difficult. That is a big risk. By the way, you've got 22 sanitary sewer pump stations, 150 miles of pipe, and 3 pump stations and 2 wastewater treatment plants. You got a complicated system. Your system is the equivalent in terms of just basic complexity, not size, as Seattle. Seattle has 2 major wastewater treatment plants, one on the north side, one on the south side. They got a whole lot more pipe, they got a whole lot more people, but it's the same complex, so very complicated. Regulatory risk. Your NPDE, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit, the permit that you are the permittee on that is issued to you to run your sewer system, is going to have enhanced measurements, enhanced testing, and enhanced sampling. Everybody across the state is griping about it. All the permittees that I work with, and that comes from Washington, D.C. and goes downhill. PFAS. Anybody know what PFAS is? Did you ever hear of forever chemicals? Forever chemicals? What happened is, and what's going to happen, and I understand why the federal government did this, is these forever chemicals are in our water supply. And it's incumbent on our generation now to get them out of the water supply. But we don't know how to do that. So the federal government said, who's the logical party to be responsible? And it's the wastewater, it's the municipally owned wastewater treatment systems, because we're the last protector of the water before it gets treated and gets put into the system. So I understand the logic. I don't understand that there's no funding that comes with that mandate. And we know that it's going to be incredibly expensive, and new technology is going to have to be developed to mitigate PFAS. So that's a big question mark. Right now there's no funding, but the mandate is on your backs to mediate it. Water quality standards and limits. Those are only going to get tougher over the next 5 years. Anti-backsliding, I think all of the staff knows what that is under the Clean Water Act, we can never have water quality standards go less than what they are now. Water can only get cleaner. It can never get less. And there's another one that just came out this week that is going to be particularly difficult for you, and it's not on the list, is the Environmental Quality Commission has a rule making on the street right now for comment that they're going to put a hard limit on greenhouse gases. Not a sliding scale to mitigate what we're doing now and bring it down, a hard ceiling on what the limit is now. One of the biggest generators of greenhouse gases are wastewater treatment plants. How many do you have? 2. So we don't know what that means, but we could see you going into greenhouse gas remediation at your wastewater treatment plants, your digesters. They generate methane. So that's a big risk that we don't understand. And then finally, the new reporting requirements and mixing zone limitations. When we put this new diffuser and outfall at Plant 2, we're also going to have to do mixing zone studies that'll add costs that are on your dime. So those are the risks that we haven't taken into account in your 6.5% rate profile. So, Christine. Here is the bars, and we're at 6.5% per year for 5 years. The numbers work, if all things being equal, and nothing else blows up in our faces, and we understand the costs that we've predicated and we've forecasted. Then you see in the back 5 years, they fall off. That's because we haven't added any big capital costs to the system. We haven't added anything new. We're just saying we're on autopilot for the next 5 years. We haven't been on autopilot in this town for a long time. So the second 5 years of this forecast are a crapshoot, frankly, between you and me. Go ahead. Now, I know this is tough for the audience here, and I apologize for the size of the fonts, but what I wanted to show is what this is a forecast of the single-family monthly rates under 3 scenarios, 6.5%, 7%, and 7.5%. The blue, the red, and the green. The blue is the 6.5, red is the 7, green is the 7.5. And you see the circle around 2025. And you'll notice that those rates, at 60, we go from $79 to $84.60, and then the highest is just like 80 cents more to go to the highest 7.5%. But if we stay at these compounding rates over 5 years, the power of compounding makes that spread pretty substantial. It goes to $108 on the 6.5%, all the way out to $114 on the 7.5. So the power of compounding is substantial. I'd like you to consider the 2025 numbers and how closely they're grouped. It's the only reason I did that is to show that. I'm not trying to sell you anything. Just trying to show what the impact is. Go ahead, Christine. Now, the next one is, I think, Mayor, you had asked this, and I tried to put this together so that I could make what's the revenue impact of these, and what's the rate and the revenue, that linkage. So this year, right now, without any rate increase, you're going to generate about $7.96 million, call it $8 million. If we do a 6.5% rate increase, it'll go to $8.5 million, 8,477, a net increase of $517,000 to the system, but the rate would go from $79.45 to $84.61. For every 0.5% increase above that 6.5, we would generate another roughly $40,000 in revenue, from 517 to 557 to 597. And the corresponding rates, as you saw on that chart that I had, $84.61, $85.01, and $85.41. So that's the linkage that we're talking about there. Is that kind of what you were thinking about?
Yes.
Some sort of a teeter-totter there to look at? And I can't tell you that. I can tell you certainly based on the forecast we've got, 6.5% would work. In my heart of hearts, I'd really love to see you go to 7.5% to give these folks some room to move. And next one. In terms of cold comfort for the council, what's everybody else paying? And in terms of coastal communities here, you're in the middle of the pack. North Bend is abnormally low, and they've got a tiger by the tail, and I think you're familiar with their situation. They cannot raise a rate without a vote of the people. They built their wastewater treatment plant, Jim, 64, 65? Do you remember? It's in the 60s. I've had calls from those folks to come out, can you help us on a funding strategy for our council? And we tell them, you're in a replacement mode now. You're not in a repair mode. So they're facing the future, and it's coming their way. Okay, next one. That is it.
So, questions, council? Well, first of all, I think this whole intent was for informational. At the budget meeting, there were some questions by some of the budget members about not increasing the rates and why this was coming back before us after your last presentation. And there were some things that came to light, which you have pointed out and Nicole has referenced. And so it's a decision that we have to make. It's been suggested, and I would say, I understand, Steve, that, us not doing anything can compound the rate. But I think if I got the tenure from the council and the budget committee, is that we hold tight until after the first of the year and kind of do an analysis, seeing where we're at on our budget constraints. I'm a little concerned because we won't have any money for the repairs that we're talking about, $1 million.
Right.
So that's very concerning. If that was to come up, I don't know what we would do, maybe kick the can down the road. I'm not sure what that would entail and what that means, but I think this brought everything to light. What I want to bring up is that circumstances beyond our control have put us here. So if you go back to 2016, when some council members, at least the three of us are sitting here, our PERS costs and health costs annually were 1.4 million. Today, they're at 2.8 million, and by the end of the year, we expect them to be at 3.4. If you go back to 2014, they were 1.1, and they have tripled in cost. And those are costs that we have no control over, none. We are obligated and mandated to take care of those situations. I guess on the health insurance, we have maybe a little bit of flexibility if we could find a better carrier, but I know that our staff has looked and has not found that. PERS, we have no options. We're stuck. And, you know, if we didn't have 3.4 million or 3 million at this point, we wouldn't be looking at some of these increases in rates and some other things that we're having to do. So anyway, that's my 2 cents and comments. Council, you got questions?
When is the next time we're scheduled to have more information on the wastewater treatment plant 2 repairs and replacement? Because we were renovating it, right?
No, 2?
One.
I'm sorry, plant 1. We already replaced plant 2.
Yes.
Right. Not again.
That was our 2016 motion, actually.
Correct.
So it's underway as we speak right now. I mean, we can certainly come with an update of where we are in that process.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what you want to share at this point, but
We do monthly Friday updates.
Yeah, but we're
Information.
replacing, we're really updating this whole system. I mean, it'll be a new system when we're done, and it's going to be, what, 26, 27 million more?
we're hoping for a little less than that.
Okay, well, hopefully, but anyway,
Yeah.
Plant 2 was 24, am I correct? In 2016 was the first action that this council took, understanding that infrastructure was important for any kind of development. And I can tell you since 2016, what was surprising to me, I had Nicole put some figures together, that this city has had $190 million in economic development since 2016. I can tell you that none of that would have happened if we didn't do Plant 2, $190 million. And the thing was, during that period of time when we first came on, the council was facing DEQ restricting us for any development. They would have put a moratorium on us and not allow any building if we had not moved forward. So that $190 million in economic development would have never happened if this council didn't take action and have it taken care of. So we have been prudent, and we have, because of it, had success, and things have been better, and you can see the development that's happening throughout the community. So Stephanie, sorry.
No, that's fine. This is one of the hard parts of doing our job. And I think it's important when we talk about the PERS costs, when we took that in-house, we knew that we would have some anticipated increases because we were taking that in-house. But I feel like it's important that we say, on the flip side of that, had we not done that, we were having major issues.
Right.
With the services that that the citizens of this city were being supplied with under a contractor. And, you know, there's a set of controls in there now by having the staff that we have running that facility. It is something that every government agency is going to have to face and do something about in the future, and we've been kicking the can down the road in the state for decades or more, quite a while. So I am concerned that if we don't have that reserve and we have a couple of not even catastrophic events, that we're going to be in trouble. And as much as I hate doing any more than we have to, I think we have to do our due diligence in saying we have to be prepared. We had 2 major incidents this past year, or this budget year, that if we had not had that funding available, we would have been in trouble, correct?
Yes, right? So the other reason, Stephanie brought up a good point, when we brought this back in-house. We were contracting it out, and of course, we saved because PERS and health insurance, as Steve had pointed out. But we also were facing, as Stephanie mentioned, losing our permit with DEQ and being fined heavily because there was multiple violations done. Am I correct?
Absolutely correct.
And we had a brand-new plant, and they were still having violations and, expectations. So we have not had those issues. I think we've had one or none.
Yeah, Jennifer might be able to speak to that.
We've had one.
One. So in, 2 years? 3 years almost now.
Almost 3.
And how often were we having incidents before?
For a year, we didn't meet permit straight.
So when the public, kind of generalizes it and says, we're polluting the water at a pretty significant rate, or polluting the land that we have, it really, that isn't the case. We're meeting DEQ's permit.
Yeah, and even beyond it. And unfortunately, again, Steve brought up, and I've been frustrated about this for a whole long time, is unfunded mandates. Going back when we did Plant 1 years ago for $7.5 million, we got an EPA DEQ grant to do that by meeting certain regulations and criteria of making sure that the rates were appropriated to the right businesses and industries. But nowadays, that's not even an option. So we get a deal if we can find brownfields money and utilize it at 1% interest, gives us other development in the area. But that's the only benefit we can potentially get. We still have to pay the piper.
Yeah, you pay the piper, but you have leveraged remarkably well. You've got these loans at 1%. 3 of those loans will come in at 1%. The fact that you've had consistent, regular rate increases, kept your overall rates competitive in the region, gave you the flexibility this year to take the gut punch, Stephanie. It gave you the room to move. And that's not because you did something today. It's because the work that you've done for the last 10 years, slow and steady, is what you've done. If you hadn't done that, I couldn't do what I'm telling you to do today.
So are those same benefits available to cities that have not had consistent rates? My understanding is if you don't do that, DEQ is not going to be so favorable if the city hasn't stepped up and taken the necessary increases in rates to maintain their system.
No. I've even seen it. Sometimes it's more set up where you've got some cities where they are severely polluting watersheds, and they haven't raised their rates for years, and they're complete basket cases. The DEQ is the lender of last resort, frankly. So it's not my experience of what you're saying.
Will they get the kind of rates that we're talking about, 1%?
They do.
Okay.
They do.
All right.
They do.
I guess we can be in that way.
So, I mean, it's almost the absurd is if you really want to get good rates, go pollute the rivers, go pollute the ocean.
All right.
What?
Okay, we're not interested in doing that.
What?
I don't think. So, Carmen, Sarah, comments, questions?
Yeah, just looking at this has been something I've been worried about and, just thinking about a lot. As a member of the water board, we're also looking at water rates there. And as we all know, Pacific Power has raised rates. They have a mandate to where they have to, the investors of that structure are guaranteed a 10% return on investment. So rates will just continue to climb, based on costs going up. And so that's a different situation altogether, but it is another piece of the pie, financial pie, that everybody here in our community is having to deal with. Rates are going to go up across the board for everything that we see, and it is an unfortunate reality. I feel like these moderate rate hikes that we're doing are just that. It's the moderate path. It's not massive jumps. It's not reactionary jumps to non-compliance. It's not raising the rates at all and then dealing with a failing infrastructure. So while it is a hard choice to move forward and say, hey, we have to raise the rates this amount, it's pretty much the reality that we face as stewards of the health and safety of our constituents. And so on my end, I want to make sure that the sustainability of our water quality division is secure, and the 6.5 would be adequate from what I'm hearing, but barely hanging on, just in case, you know, if anything else happens, I don't know where we're coming from. And so that is scary to me. I'm not sure if that's responsible to just leave us with no potential cushion. And when I'm looking at the rate increases, we're looking at an estimated monthly sewer bill going up 40 cents per 0.5% in a year. And, you know, between the 6.5 and 7.5, we're making an extra 80 grand. That's still not a huge amount, but neither is 80 cents. So I'm not quite sure where I land. I'm really looking forward to the conversations that we'll all have, and involving the budget committee as well, see how people feel. But, you know, clean water and the health and safety of our citizens is paramount. And I realize that it's tough out there financially, and I hope that this is a lesson to our younger constituents. Hunter, you're one. Think about financial planning and estimate inflation into all of your your plans, because this is never going away. Rates will continue to rise. So while it is a tough reality, I think we have to make a healthy decision. So I'm looking forward to hearing what everybody feels.
Sarah?
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better than Councilor Matthews. I completely agree with everything that you all are saying, and I too am concerned about people's financial health and their personal, but you know, their family budgets. But I also think clean water is a privilege that we want to maintain in the community.
All right, thanks. So I can tell you that.
I was just going to add to that, what Counselor Stevens said is, if we don't make it a priority, someone else will, and that's the regulatory agencies, and that's that unknown territory that we have to be concerned about.
No, absolutely, and I can tell you that the city in the past has done 20 and 25% increases, and I don't want us to be back in that situation, so I think we've been very prudent. But with all that said, and with the Budget Committee, and Steve, I appreciate you being here, I think that we shouldn't take any kind of action tonight. We need to really think about this. You know, this is an impact to our citizens, and with inflation, and so maybe during the budget meeting, when we adopt the budget, we can discuss it again then, or shortly after that. It needs to be addressed, and this council needs to decide how they want to move forward on it. So, is there anything else? Well, Steve, thank you. It's always good to see you.
I'm a resource. To reach out. We got computers.
Well, you're a great resource, and I can tell you, before I came back in 2016, you weren't around, and maybe we wouldn't have been in those positions. But since then, you've put things in perspective, whether we like it or not, and you've kept us on an even keel, and we've been able to maintain the system because of your analysis, and so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, next item on the agenda is approval of the National Emergency Medical Services and Week Proclamation. Who's starting this off?
I can take care of that. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. The City of Coos Bay provides emergency medical services as first responders in cooperation with Bay Cities Ambulance, our local transporting agency. In 2023, the fire department responded to just over 3,000 medical emergency services calls, making up roughly 70% of fire department responses. So tonight, reading the proclamation and representing Bay Cities Ambulance is paramedic field trainer Jason Hoffman.
Good evening.
I'm Jason Hoffman. I live actually in North Bend.
We won't hold that against you, I promise. We work very well together. All right.
My heart and soul's in Coos Bay. Proclamation. Whereas emergency services, EMS, are a vital service to the community, and whereas the members of the emergency medical services teams are ready to provide life-saving care to those in need 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and whereas access to quality emergency care dramatically improves the survival and recovery rate of those who experience sudden illness or injury, and whereas the emergency medical services system consists of emergency physicians, emergency room nurses, EMTs, paramedics, firefighters, educators, administrators, and others. And whereas the members of the emergency medical service teams, whether career or volunteer, engage in thousands of hours of specialized training and continuing education to enhance their life-saving skills. And whereas it is appropriate to recognize the value and the accomplishments of the emergency medical services providers by designating EMS Service Week.
And now, therefore, I, Joe Bendetti, Mayor of the City of Coos Bay, do hereby proclaim May 19th through May 25th, 2024 as Emergency Medical Service Week in the City of Coos Bay, Oregon, and encourage all citizens to join the observance of this Emergency Medical Services Week. Thank you for reading that. So, council, to adopt this proclamation, I need a motion and a second, please.
I move we approve the National Emergency Medical Services Week proclamation as May 19th through May 25th.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the National Emergency Medical Services Week proclamation. Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. I can just tell you, it's great to have you around. You take care of many of our needs and health services that are imperative to all our citizens. So thank you so much. Next item is approval of National Public Works Week proclamation. Jim?
Thank you. This annual observation was established by President John F. Kennedy in 1960 to increase awareness of the contribution of public works to communities all over the United States. Advancing quality of life for all is the theme of the 2024 National Public Works Week. Public works is the thread that connects us all, no matter where we live in the world. Every public works professional strives to improve the quality of life for the community they serve, leading to healthier, happier communities. Public works employees help keep communities strong by providing an infrastructure of services and transportation, water, wastewater, and stormwater treatment, public buildings and spaces, parks and grounds, emergency management, first response, solid waste, and right-of-way management. They are what make our communities great places to live and work. This is an opportunity to acknowledge the quiet work these professionals do that makes life better for us all. So I'll read the proclamation. Whereas public works professionals focus on infrastructure, facilities, and services that are of vital importance to sustainable and resilient communities and to the public health, high quality of life, and well-being of the people of the City of Coos Bay, and whereas these infrastructure, facilities, and services could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals who are engineers, managers, and employees at all levels of government and the private sector who are responsible for rebuilding, improving, and protecting our nation's transportation, water supply, water treatment, and solid waste systems, public buildings, and other structures and facilities essential to our citizens. And whereas it is in the public interest for the citizens, civic leaders, and children in the City of Coos Bay to gain knowledge of and to maintain an ongoing interest and understanding of the importance of public works and public works programs in their respective communities. And whereas the year 2024 marks the 64th Annual National Public Works Week sponsored by the American Public Works Association.
Now, therefore, I, Joe Benetti, Mayor of the City of Coos Bay, do hereby proclaim the week of May 19th through the May 25th, 2024 to be National Public Works Week. During this week, I urge all citizens to join with representatives of the American Public Works Association and government agencies to pay the tribute to our public works professionals, engineers, managers, and employees, and to recognize the substantial contributions they make to protecting our national health, safety, and quality of life. So thank you for reading it, Jim, in the background. And so, council, can I have a motion and a second to approve this proclamation?
Move that we proclaim the week of May 19th through 25th, 2024 Public Works Week in the City of Coos Bay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the proclamation of National Public Works Week proclamation. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. Thank you. And then this is just one sector of our employees that take care of a large interest that we have, parks, wastewater, and other things, streets. So anyway, thank you so much. Next item is to consideration of appointment to the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board Budget Committee. Nicole?
Yes, thank you. So the Water Board is much like cities in that they have to go through a annual budget process. They do extend an invitation to include a member of council, if you so desire, to participate in that process. Last year, I was given the opportunity to hold that role for the city, and I am available to do that again this year if that's something you desire, unless there is, of course, someone who would prefer to attend. I do understand their meetings will be June 6th and the following on the 13th. They're generally during the noon hour, and they do provide lunch. So if you do need to, if you are working and need to take your lunch as a budget committee member, they do make sure you are fed. So what's before you is potentially someone who may want to take that role, or if you so desire, I'm happy to do so.
So council, is there someone who would like to serve on the budget committee for the Coos Bay North Bend Water Board? Or should we allow Nicole to represent us?
I'm happy to have Nicole represent us.
Same.
She put her hand up.
Okay, Carmen, head Sarah, you agree?
Well, since I'm on the board, at least one person from the council will be at the budget meetings, but it was wonderful having Nicole there last year, so I would vote to say yes.
Okay, Sarah, you all right with that?
Yes, thank you to both Carmen and Nicole for serving in that role.
All right, Nicole, thank you. And we all concur that you should be there and represent us with Carmen, so thanks. Next item, consideration to approve contract for Plant 1 digesters cleaning. Jennifer?
Thank you. So as Mr. Donovan stated earlier, the city of Coos Bay has two wastewater plants. So Plant 1 is located at 680 Ivy Avenue, and Plant 2 is located at 490 Fulton Avenue. The solids removed from the treatment process at Plant 2 are transferred via the sewer collection system to Plant 1. Plant 1 has two anaerobic digester tanks that treat the solids from both plants. The Plant 1 digesters process the solids via heat in a period of time such that they meet EPA and Oregon DEQ quality regulations. Once treated to these standards, the solids are recognized as biosolids and, in the city's case, transferred to the storage lagoon in Eastside and land applied to local farmland as fertilizer in the summer. Periodically, these tanks must be cleaned. Currently, the schedule is every 5 years. The primary digester was last cleaned in 2021, and the secondary digester was last cleaned in 2019. Previously, and prior to the city taking over operations and maintenance of the sewer system, the cleaning efforts only included one tank at a time, approximately 16 months apart. City staff investigated this, and in working with the contractor, they have crafted a plan to have the contractor only mobilize once, which saves the mobilization costs, approximately $11,000. This allows the cleaning of the digesters at the same time and better aligns the cleaning schedules for both digesters in the future. So 3 quotes were requested from companies that do this work and are confined space certified. The low quote received was for an amount of $80,690. Understanding that if additional material is discovered in the digester than what was estimated, the digester maintenance contractor will require a change order. So conversely, if less material is removed, the city will receive a deduct. However, to cover any additional material that may be found, staff is requesting a 15% contingency. One of the digesters has a mechanical mixer that will need to be removed via crane. This cost is anticipated to be approximately $5,000. In total, staff is requesting an amount not to exceed of $97,794 for the cleaning of the Plant 1 digesters. The budget for this will come out of the Fund 3 water quality budget, and this was a planned project.
Questions for Jennifer? Hearing none, how would you like to proceed?
I move we approve the cleaning of digesters for an amount not to exceed $97,794, which includes crane rental, award of a contract to Wastewater Solids Management Company, and a 15% contingency.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the cleaning of Plant One digesters not to exceed the amount of $97,794. So Jennifer, we did go out for bids on this, am I correct?
Yes, we have a request for quotes.
Okay. Is there any other comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, it passes. All right, we've already done number E, which is pursue the acquisition of state surplus land, which we're not doing. So we're going to go down to F, which is something that I asked Nicole to put on the agenda for this evening, and that is the council rules. So I'll let Nicole start, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to grab some coffee.
Okay, thank you. So the rules of the city council provide a framework for the operation and management of the elected body's governance processes. Within those rules are things such as council meetings, the establishments of boards and committees, interactions with city staff, and public records. Review of the rules can provide us with an opportunity to update specific guidelines, either to what we are currently practicing or a current preference. There are several elements that I think that's been identified by Mayor Benetti, which could be discussed tonight in areas such as public comments, the order of the agenda items, and council comments. There is also some identified clerical issues that always needs, that we miss just because we're used to reading the document. You catch it often afterwards. If there are any revisions that are discussed here tonight, which you would like to come forward, we would bring those back to you at a future meeting with the revisions in tracked, legislative formats. You can see those, and then you would then be able to make that action.
So I just want to chime in. So I think whatever we decide, remember, this is our council rules. They can be changed. They can even be suspended during the meeting. I am here to oversee your wishes with the council rules. But I need some guidance, and I think that we need guidance, and we should be consistent in what we do or we don't do. So, for instance, tonight I allowed to be a discussion after an agenda item. Is that something we should do more often? With public comments being at the end, the public would not have any opportunity to discuss that item because we've already taken action on it. When Stephanie, thank you for stepping in. When she ran the meeting, she asked for for public comments during each agenda item. And that's fine, but we need to determine what we do or we don't do. I haven't done that because the council rules don't dictate that should be the case. But it's, again, we can change those, or we can even do it per meeting. But I need some guidance. The other thing is that one of the mayor's talks, it was brought up, shouldn't the council be limited in their time? It's a valid question. Should we not be limited? We limit public comments to 3 minutes. Should we not limit our comments? Again, this is up to the council to decide. Not for me, but that's why I'm bringing it before you. And the order of the agenda. And should we allow extra time? If you watch any of the North Bend Council meetings, at times Mayor Engelke will allow another minute or 30 seconds or 60 seconds or 90 seconds or whatever it may be. So is that prudent to do or not? I've been held to the standard as 3 minutes and 3 minutes only. So I've been following those guidelines. So we need to, come together and decide, how you want to proceed with these items that I have put on this agenda for tonight. Now, that doesn't mean there's other things that maybe you have an interest in changing or not. So anyway, and if this is something you just want to review and bring back for another discussion, give you some time to think about it, that's more than agreeable to. I just think it's something that we should review at least annually and determine whether we want to change it or not, or we want to stick with what we got. So there we go. And now the floor is open to you to decide how we need to proceed. Who's first?
I have a question regarding the time limit restraint for counselors. What was the reasoning behind that from the public?
The public said that they're limited to time, and therefore should not the council be limited to time. They just thought it was only fair. Now, Again, like I said, I think that's for the council to decide. Do we want to limit our time, or do we want to leave it open-ended?
Can I make a comment on that?
Absolutely. I mean, no, this is for
I mean,
discussion.
a person that's representing themselves, coming to the podium, or representing an idea of a group, is not nearly as big as what the council that is elected by the citizens of the city as a whole. So there may be necessary time to discuss the multitude of things. For example, like tonight when we were talking about the rates or the housing.
This was in reference to our comments at the end of the meeting.
Oh,
So
I
it
see.
wasn't limited, there was, at least at this meeting, there was no
I don't
discussion.
usually have that much to say, do I?
Well, no, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
so,
okay.
and it's totally, it's our decision to make, these are our rules, right, Nate, Nicole? These are ours to determine. So, I mean, these are not administratively or legislatively bound by any of that stuff. So it's something for us, some guidelines for us to follow.
Well,
So-
I would just say, finish my thought, that we do try to be judicious in our comments, whether it's on a particular topic or our comments at the end of a meeting. And I still maintain that we have to represent a lot of folks that we may hear from, even if it's bringing up items under our council comments.
Okay, how does everyone else feel about that? We're at least on that topic. Do we want to limit our time or leave it open-ended as it is?
I'll kind of just give my whole opinion. One is, I think we have to remember why we're here. We're here officially to do the city's business. We have staff that's here after hours. I think that it is important to do a thorough job of the city's business and discuss those issues, but at the same time, be respectful of everyone's time. In that public meeting, or the city's meeting held in public, we allow a portion of time for public comment. I think that whatever we decide, we should be consistent with it across the board, whether it's a friendly conversation or a contentious conversation. The rules should be the same for everyone, every time. As far as putting limits on our comments, I don't really have a great feeling as to whether we should be limited or not. I would be fine if we were. I'm fine if we're not. And as far as to agenda items, if somebody has a really hard, strong feeling of the way they want it, I'm fine with it. I don't have any strong feeling. For me, I want us to remember why we're here, to try to do the business as quickly and efficiently as we can, while respecting the need for the public to hear and understand what we're doing, and then have a period of time for them to make relevant comments.
Okay.
Or not relevant, frankly. It's their time. They can say whatever they want.
Sure,
Yeah.
true. All right, anyone else on at least the topic of the time limit for the council? Leave it open-ended is,
Yeah, I'm fine with a 5-minute cutoff for the comments at the end. And we could consider, I know there's some councils where during the rotation of comments, they do a first pass through that's limited by time for an agenda item, just to keep the conversation moving a little bit. But that might be a separate item to consider.
so why 5 minutes?
Because I want to go home.
No, okay, so, all right, so we have 5 minutes, we have open-ended.
I don't have
and-
more than 5 minutes to say. It's
Okay.
kind of my philosophy is nothing takes 5 minutes.
Well, I mean, I like the 3-minute rule for the public, and if you guys are fine with it, I'd be fine with putting a 3-minute rule on us as well, to give you a time, if anyone else has an opinion.
Okay, so Carmen and Sarah, how do you feel? We have open-ended, 3 minutes and 5 minutes.
I'll jump in here. Most of the public comments that we get are about one specific topic, and I will say that most of the time when I'm giving my council comments at the end of the night, it is regarding many different topics, addressing many questions across the board and concerns that I've noticed in my own self. So I would generally like to leave that open-ended. I think that people are here to listen to what we're thinking and how we're voting, and we need to be able to disseminate that information as clearly and concisely as we can, so not to be I guess, abusive of that open-ended time limit, which I haven't seen here in this council. However, that's not to say that it couldn't get bad later on down the line. I'd be okay with a general time limit. I think 3 minutes is too narrow of a time window for us to respond to the numerous questions, in addition to the fact that we often don't respond to questions from public comments at that time. So sometimes those come back in our individual council comments. So if we're responding on anything that we came up with later that was a former agenda item or a current agenda item throughout the night that we just wanted to touch back on or say thank you for or anything, it just really cuts us short. So, but maybe I like to talk more than you guys. It sounds like I already do right now. So
3 minutes,
I would like
Carmen.
to keep it open.
No, I'm just kidding.
Nothing.
Long-winded answer, Carmen. Just wrap it up.
No,
Yeah.
it's fine. Sarah?
I agree with everything that's been said. I don't have anything to add. I would be fine with a 5-minute time limit. And I'm okay leaving it open-ended as well.
We got it, yeah, all right. So
I think the consensus was open-ended. That's what I heard.
I agree. Okay, so let's put it this way. These items that we're discussing, first of all, I want to make sure that we understand that whatever's decided this evening is something that can be changed at the next council meeting. So the council rules are here, and they can also be suspended for some certain reason. So that one item we'll leave open-ended. How about having public make comments during each agenda item?
I think that's an important one. Looking at the time frames and just being mindful that we're trying to get through an agenda and do all the business that needs done, though. I think the 3 minutes on the comments on an agenda item works out well, and then maybe public comment at the end being 5 minutes. Been doing a lot of questions where I've got 2 minutes to answer, and that works out all right, but that could be tricky for some folks, so.
Okay.
As a thought.
So you addressed two different items, so you agree that there should be commentary available for agenda items? Stephanie, Troy?
I think it's important that we allow the public to
Interact.
comment on
Okay.
agenda items. I don't know that we need to respond back to those. I think hearing from the public is important. I'm not in favor of expanding the amount of time under public comments. I think most people get it in within 3 minutes, unless there is an item where someone is representing multiple ideas. We didn't get through a couple of meetings ago some comments that I felt were important to hear from the general public, but I think that if those do travel outside of that range of time, that the public needs to remember to make those available to us in writing, because I think it's important that we get all of that information. Just my 2 cents.
Okay. Troy?
No, I'm not in favor of public comments throughout the meeting. Again, it's the city's meeting to complete city business, and there's a section at the end or the beginning for public comment, and I think it should be limited to 3 minutes. So again, addressing two separate issues, but as far as public comments throughout the meeting, I'm opposed.
All right, Drew?
No, I do firmly want the folks to be able to comment on agenda items as we go through, because since we moved public comment to the end, I can't know what's being thought until we get to the end after I've already made decisions, and I don't know what I don't know. If public comment was at the front, it worked out better if we did that, but I do want to have the ability to have people comment on each item as long as they're being relevant to the item.
Okay. Carmen?
I was just basically going to go the same route as Drew, that if we were going to have comment during agenda items, that it would need to be at the beginning of the meeting so that we could hear from people before we have to talk about an agenda item. And so for that matter, I could go either way. I think I would prefer to either do it per agenda item or at the beginning of the meeting. I still think that 3 minutes is appropriate time. That's my general thought at this moment.
All right, Sarah?
I agree with Councilor Cribbins and also with Drew and Carmen. I think it is important for people to be able to give us their insight on an agenda topic. And so if the public comments were moved to the beginning, so that we could hear from the public. But I don't think that leaving it open for people to comment on every agenda item is, I just think that we're going to end up having 3 or 4 hour meetings, and I'm not sure we want to do that to staff.
Okay, so since Councilor DeNovo is not here, let's table that one, or not table it. Let's kick the can down the road and bring that up at the next council meeting, that item. The only thing is that I think that we need to keep in mind that we move the public comment to the end because it interfered with our operation and the people that were making presentations, like Steve Donovan this evening or somebody else, and we felt that wasn't fair. So I understand that also there might be some interest in allowing some input on some of the agenda items. So again, I guess that would come back down to, do we want to move public comments back up to the front, leave them where they're at? Another discussion that's on here. So why don't we leave both of those for when Councilor DeNovo is here, and we'll bring those both back up. And so that also addresses should the agenda order be revised, so that's all in the same contents. So anyway, those are the items. We got direction on pretty much where we're at so far on those items. I think that we need to look these over and think about it, and let's come back at our next council meeting and address it again, and we'll bring it up and go from there. So I appreciate the input.
Would
Yes.
you like this to come back at the work session, which is next week, or the following council meeting?
Well, let's do it at a work session. Everyone all right with that?
Fine.
Okay. All right, so we'll bring this back up to the work session. So if you get a chance, please look at these and let us know what you think, council, and we'll go from there. So thanks. I appreciate your input. Next item on the agenda is public comments. So the public comments period is intended for the public to share ideas and concerns. It is not intended for any interaction, discussion with the council. There may be opportunities for the comment during specific agenda items. Members of the public are requested to confine their remarks and questions or issues under discussion during this time. During any designated comment period, individuals shall not engage in personal attacks, shall not impugn the motives or any speaker, and shall at all times while in session conduct themselves in an appropriate manner. No person shall make personal, impertinent, slanderous, or unauthorized remarks and become boisterous while addressing the council. And when I was looking at these council agendas rules, also it was stated that when a public, and I want to make sure that this is in here, is making a comment, it's to the council, not to individual councilors. So anyway, that being the case, public comments, I have a list, but it doesn't limit it to this. Is it Robert Mill? Okay. Daryl Barr? Okay, come on up, Daryl.
Yeah, I'm Daryl Barr. I live here in town for 3 years. I've lived in Oregon over half my life, but I want to comment on the going on Elrod when you're going between Tower Ford buildings there. I was involved in an accident then. It was my fault. The signals there from the northbound, the southbound to the northbound are 150 feet apart. I was looking at the wrong signals, and they need to time. I feel that those need to be timed. I'm on the northbound. They're continually gridlocking because people are going from the southbound to the northbound or coming off Elrod, and they're gridlocking the southbound lanes, trying to get out of the northbound lanes. And I went to the city after I got in the wreck, because I ran the red light. It was my fault and got T-boned. But anyway, if they were timed, it wouldn't be a problem. I did talk to the city. This is what's the state's highway. So I went to the state and they said, no, it's in city's property. And so what do you do? Just, I know there are wrecks there continually. I know that. I've been told that by the Tower Ford people. And even one of our postal trucks was in a wreck there not too long ago, I understand. Ran the red light and T-boned someone or something, I don't know. But it'd be nice to lose your time. And I kind of want to know what the city's police forces has. I have a friend, and she lived business friend, and She lived in up in Empire, but she was in county. But someone took over her house when she was on vacation. Some homeless. She had turned her water and power off, and these people actually went to the water department and the electric department and had them turned on with no proof they lived there. And I'm going, how can that happen? And the sheriff was involved in that. They was not allowed to arrest him. I know that was county, but the city. I kind of want, if I go away for a couple of weeks and I come home, my house has homeless people living in it. What's going to happen? I kind of want to know. You know. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Castleman.
Chris Castleman. I live just outside the city. I appreciate you chatting about the council rules, the last agenda item. I really do appreciate that. I obviously have my thoughts about that, and we've discussed them. I agree with Troy, although I'm addressing the whole council. I appreciate the consistency comment. Like, consistency would help everyone. It would help me understand that, you know, it's being fairly applied. I'm really in favor of the agenda item level comments. Like, I remember a few weeks back, there was an agenda item on a particular grant, and I had some things that I kind of wanted to convey before you guys voted on it, and I didn't have that opportunity. Then it also happened at the homeless advisory meeting. You know, having to wait till the end of a meeting for comments, and I came to the meeting for something specific on the agenda. You know, that's tough to be involved as a citizen. Like, you did it today, and I thought it went great. And there's not normally a lot of people here at these meetings, so I don't think it would take like 4 hours. I mean, there might be some meeting that's a hot topic, and in that case, maybe you need 4 hours for that, but I don't think it would be like a regular thing. So I would hope that you reconsider that. It would, I think it would help both sides come together. And I've said this before, but the Board of Commissioner meetings for the county are like a great template. Today's meeting was 9:30 to before noon. It wasn't that long, and they have comments on every single agenda item. And I mean, there's even one guy who's been here before too, and he talks pretty like nonsense, and it's not really relevant, but they get through it, and most of the comments are relevant, and there's even back and forth, and it works. Now, I don't know if that will work here. You guys are a different thing, but maybe like try it out. Like, try it for a meeting and just see. Like, you never know. Maybe it would go well. I promise I wouldn't abuse it. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim and Carol, I see you're here, and I'll ask you if you want to make a public comment from the coach house. And I imagine it might have been on the east side property that you might be attending. Did you want to make a comment about that, or want any information about that?
Joe, we just came to hear what was going to put in a...
Can you come up to the mic, Jim, please?
Jim Lorenz, Coach House. We just heard that they were going to put in some kind of a camp over there by Sauce Brothers. Is that true?
No. So there was some surplus property from the state that was being decided or discussed with the city. There was a lot more parameters around it, getting an analysis, getting a value on it, and having paid full price. And we thought it was going to be surplus property where we could have maybe some housing done. That's not the case. So the council was not interested in moving forward with it. So no, it's not going to happen.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, we mentioned it earlier and moved it up, and that's what Chris was referring to.
Right.
Anyway,
Thank you.
You timed it good if it was in the regular order. So anyway.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks. Good seeing you both, though. All right. Is there any other public comments for anyone that's not on? Yes, Mike.
Mike Vaughn, 598 North 4th Court. Just listening to your discussion is educational for the public and anybody that might not know what that agenda is going to be about or specifics of the agenda. And so the education part of being on the agenda, we all understand. I think the friction is in not being included in that discussion by the public. And so maybe the decision may be held off to the end of the meeting, where somebody that does find an interesting comment during the discussion can comment on it and may affect the outcome of the vote. So there's some balance there, that we are interested in public comment, and not after the vote is taken and it's no longer anything to be decided. So I think that the public is probably concerned about that there is no way to affect a vote with your opinion. So maybe if somebody signs up for an agenda item and they're here to comment on it, and the vote is not taken until that person comments on it, maybe that would be inclusive and probably not a big waste of time, just a matter of courtesy for an opinion to affect a vote.
Thank you. All right. Jamie, you got your hand up. Faraday. Good evening.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
I am here on behalf of the Mingus Park Pool Board, who would like to acknowledge the timely support of the city staff and council to get the pool back into operation. First, the council's decision to access their rainy day funds set that whole thing in motion, which was really, it gave us confidence that it was going to happen. But then through the mayor's walk and input from community, encourage people to step up and support. I think we're all blown away by the response, obviously. We missed seeing you at the May 10th pool party we organized to thank those involved, from Scott Davison in the boiler room to our dear patrons who dug deep into their pockets to reopen this gem in the park system. So thank you, and hope to see you in the lanes. The water is perfect. As a matter of fact, I met with the Oregon Health Authority representative today at the pool, and he puts high marks on the Mingus Park pool water quality and sanitation. So this is a very valued piece of our community, and again, we thank the support of our staff at the city and the council people.
Thanks, Jamie. Appreciate it. Okay, are there any other comments by the public? Yes.
Scott Frazier, I'm living in Eastside. I agree with Mr. Vaughn about being able to comment on agenda items during the meeting, because especially if there's going to be a vote taken by the council, I think that would be appropriate. I've also heard a lot of people saying lately that their water bill has jumped drastically, and I'm just wondering, are they estimating the value or the bill rather than going out and reading the meters? I don't know. Fortunately, mine hasn't done that. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Any other public comments? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to council comments. And council, if you want to address some of these. Oh my gosh, I'm going to skip you again. Maybe, are we going to take that out of the council rules? Can we do something about that? All right, Nicole, sorry.
I think part of the challenge is the way the agenda is formatted with public comments. It's difficult to see that line kind of following. I'll give you the grace.
Very nice, thank you.
The first thing, so at the dais, and I believe I sent this to the folks who, to the whole group, but so those who would be online, you could see, you have an example of a sign that is being shared as a possible sign we want to put up at the Mingus Park Community Building, which we all knew before as the scout cabin. So normally, this is a decision we would have just made internally, but if there's a lot of work happening out there, and it felt like it's nice to kind of share. This is the pathway we were going to take. Hoping you love it too, because it's we're ready to go forward with that. But
so I think the council all got this sign that is being suggested. Does any of the council have an issue with the sign or want to change it? Hearing none, I guess not.
Perfect. At our last council meeting, I shared some information on the bathroom structure, the pavilion area that's at Mingus Park, and I incorrectly stated that we were taking that building down. And the next morning, at our department head meeting, I was corrected in that we aren't taking the building down. We are going to repurpose, enclose the building, and use it for storage. So because I said that in a public meeting, I wanted to clear that up. I do think we put out a PSA. I think today it might have hit the airwaves. And so that beat me to clearing this up. But again, I wanted to do that in this public
So
space.
when do we plan on enclosing it?
Good question. Do we have a timeline on that? I think it's like imminent, yeah.
So we're currently pulling building permits. We're almost done with doing that, and then we'll get it scheduled here in the next month.
So it'll be enclosed within the next month?
That's
Okay.
the plan.
So in the meantime, can we take the, oh, never mind. Since it's going to be enclosed, that's fine. I was going to say take the sign down, but since it's going to be.
It's down.
Down. Very good. Thank you. Okay?
Okay. Just a quick update, because it's a moving target at this point. The east side docks. We had a diver in water recently and have a report on, we were looking at the pilings, had concern about the structurally soundness of those pilings. That report we will share with both the insurance company and then also the State Marine Board to kind of get some next steps. So still kind of uncertain on where we're going. Again, it's looking like it could be something a little bit bigger. Pilings may need to be replaced, maybe some design work on the actual docks themselves. So we are looking into next year before those will be replaced.
Can you just remind the public as to why that ended up being closed and what happened?
Yes, so in February, the docks were hit by a large ship that was in the channel and being turned. That's a process that's pretty formalized by I believe the Coos Bay pilots, which is the tugboat. They come in and help navigate the channel and do any turning because they're aware of the current status. So that occurred, and unfortunately in that turn, the docks were hit. And we've been in kind of a process of assessment along with working with obviously three parties, the city, the large ship's owner, and then the tug pilot group. That also brings 3 insurance companies to the table, and some state agencies, and it's a rather big project for was a really quick little incident. So we understand that this is a challenge for the community, the larger community, the fishing community in particular. There are limited access points to get folks out onto the river. That is going to impact the upcoming salmon season for sure. Unfortunately, given the choice, we would have not had the dock hit. So we are where we are today, and we are working as quickly as we possibly can, given all of the entities that are involved. Yeah. I think Mike Vaughn is here tonight. You have also a drawing which was done for the windmill. There's been a little back and forth over the last couple weeks, and I felt like it had some value to come back just in discussion, if nothing else. So the windmill was installed on property, I don't know if you guys remember, there was a small garden, shop. I don't know how to explain it well enough, but adjacent to kind of where Morgan Vet is now. and the windmill, which Mike Vaughn designed and collaborated with several entities in the community to provide pieces for that. It was installed there. Then that property has transitioned ownership to Morgan Vet, the owners of Morgan Vet. The city does have the windmill, and as I understand, there was some initial discussion to put that in the parking lot at Front Street. However, final design, it didn't stay within the design itself. I think that Mike has also been before the Parks Commission to identify some areas throughout the city where there's a possibility to install it there. And I might have gone as far to offer Mr. Vaughn to have the artwork back if there was a place on private property that he might find for it to reside. It is a large piece, and so there is some challenge in regards to transporting and installation, just from Mike's perspective. So I think there's been a lot of discussion around this. Most of this happened before my time, so I wanted to just make sure we were walking a path that was reasonable. We don't really have a designated art throughout the city kind of focus. We do have some beautification elements within the goals, and so I'm interested in any feedback, I guess, if there was anything you wanted to add to that.
So, council?
Did we have, other than moving and storing, did we have any money change hands with that?
Yes, so we acquired the windmill for $2,500 from the current property owners, which was Morgan Veterinary.
So what would you like to do? Do you have any suggestions or recommendations for staff or Nicole on the windmill?
And just for clarity, the Parks Commission has not brought up a recommendation for you as far as location, so.
I kind of feel like that's.
Can we ask the Parks Committee to give us a recommendation of a place to put it? Because I assume it is like 14 feet tall.
It's pretty big.
There's going to be, probably, it's going to need secure placement.
Yeah, and there is
some
a
sort of
cement
maintenance.
pad and
Right.
some, yeah. And,
That
you
would
know,
be helpful.
Councilor Matthews might be able to speak to that because he is on the Parks Commission, but it is my understanding that they've reviewed options across the city, and there isn't a recommendation on city property.
All right, so we just leave it in limbo unless the Parks, Carmen?
Yeah, we looked at some of the proposed spots that Mike gave, and maybe if we need to speak to some of those, he could, but we didn't see any of those particular ones. We didn't look at other park assets for potentials, but you know, at this point, the Parks Commission would be fine with looking at this and giving you some feedback as a body. So just from my personal point of view, I think if he has a spot that he'd like to put it on personal property, I'd be fine with handing it over, but that's me.
All right, so I think from what I'm hearing is that we'll let the Parks Commission come back with a recommendation. If they do not come back with a recommendation, then we can go from there.
Sounds great. Thank
Okay?
you.
Mm-hmm.
We, just to make sure everybody's aware, Senator Wyden's has a planned town hall coming up. It is on the 29th. You have a printout there for that invitation. That has been released for sure by his team. There is, I did see today, although I haven't seen an official release, but also Senator Merkley has a planned town hall coming up on June 7th. And then the last piece, which is, I guess, maybe silly, but I just want to acknowledge this. But so next week is a work session. It is also the start of practice for Dancing with the Stars, which I am going to be a candidate in this year. So I do have a challenge if we're coming back with council for the rules discussion at the work session. My practice time is from 7 to 8. So obviously you can have a discussion without me here, but I'll have to leave Puss and Dance and she's on to practice. That event is June 1st. It includes 6 individuals from the community. It supports the Star of Hope, so it's their big fundraising event. And I would say Councilor Farmer participated in the last couple years, yeah.
Yeah, my cousin was letting me know how badly I danced the other day.
So.
I was one of the inaugural
That's
dancers.
right. I think I saw a
And
picture.
I definitely have 2 left feet.
Yeah, me too. I don't think they pick people who are spectacular at dancing, but just saying. That's
You'll do
all I
great.
had. It's only 90 seconds. There's only so much havoc I can wreak.
So Nicole, Daryl Babb came up and made a public comment about the Elrod lights, and I can tell you it is a mess down there. And so he stated that the city says it's a state, the state says it's a city. Can you get some clarification for us on
Yeah,
that,
we
please?
certainly can, unless there's, any input now, but yeah.
I mean, I used to drive there frequently, and it's a mess. I mean, you get backed up, and you can't go through the light, and it can get confusing. And I know Tower of Ford, they're very careful where they have their people cross, because if people have been hit there, so they make sure that they cross on the northern side, so that doesn't happen, because there's a lot of traffic going.
Yeah,
around there.
I do agree that that's a challenge in that area, having a block where you just have lights kind of managing that. Yeah, I agree, but it also takes awareness, and we all take that responsibility as drivers, knowing where you're at. I mean, I've been in that boat where you're
Right.
kind of like, do I go, do I not?
I agree, but then on top of it, if you have a truck come through there, and then they back up to 101 traffic going south, I mean, I don't know it's a poor design. I
Yeah.
agree.
And we're
well
trying to
in
keep
favor.
the flow on 101. I
Right,
mean,
so
that's our
I don't know
goal.
if they can time the lights better so that the traffic flows better or not. I don't know, but it's something that was brought up, so I think if
Sure.
we can look into it, it'd be great.
Absolutely.
All right? All right. Anything else for Nicole?
That was it.
I'm just asking the council. All right, council comments. Drew, let's start with you.
Sure. Just the one to remind folks, it's Memorial Day on Monday. That's not for those of us that are still around. That's for the vets that didn't make it back. Red poppy is the flower of remembrance. And of course, it came up earlier with the PFAS thing, the chemicals. I contend that the total tally at the end of the war isn't when they say the war stopped, it's when everybody is done. And we constantly, as vets, get letters about something we were exposed to or maybe exposed to that's causing medical problems. So just, think of the folks you know around you and the folks that aren't anymore. That's it.
All right, thanks, Drew. Sarah, I'm going to jump around a little bit tonight. Any comments, Sarah?
Sorry, problem with my Zoom mute button. No comments from me tonight, except for to just express some appreciation for Nicole. You've got a really full-time job, and you still continue to participate in these awesome community events. And so appreciate you for being a team player and being out in the community, volunteering and supporting area nonprofits.
All right, thanks, Sarah. Stephanie?
Do I have 3 minutes or 5? No, I'm just kidding.
Depends.
I just really want to say thank you and appreciation for our proclamations tonight, for our emergency medical responders, and also our Public Works Department, which is encompassing so many areas that people don't even know about. So appreciate all of you and all of our staff. And that's really all I have.
All right, Carmen?
Try to be quick here. Got a few things. First off, on May 8th, we had a Bike to School Day, and I just want to say thank you to everybody who participated in that. Nicole Rutherford was joined us on our bike path, and this was just for the School of Lighthouse School, which is in East Side. The police department was on board and the fire department, and I just want to say how grateful I am for everyone's participation. They made that morning and the afternoon really special for the kids, and they really want to do it again. So we're going to try to pull together a bike to school day on the last day of school as well. So if anybody's interested in joining up, that'll be June 13th, and really excited to get these kids just participating in the transportation throughout our city and showing them that they have a place here as well. So it was really neat. The next thing, since we're talking about young people, you're not as young as some of those kids, but Hunter Thompson, I just wanted to say thanks for all of your updates. It's a lot of information, and I'm amazed as to what is happening over in the high school, and I'm really grateful that you share that information with us. Your work ethic is totally inspiring to me, and you give me a lot of hope for our younger generations. And I think you're a bright and shining star leading the way for a lot of young people. And I'm glad we got to know you a little bit better. So we wish you well on your future plans, and I know you'll do very well. The next thing is another young person thing. I attended the Pacific School Dance, which is part of the Boys and Girls Club. Their dance performance this weekend, which was another completely inspiring thing. Performance from all these younger students throughout the community of various ages, and seeing these kids express themselves was just truly inspiring, and just gives me a bit of pause to think about and be grateful for the opportunities that our youth have in this area, and the Boys and Girls Club and the Pacific School Dance for what they bring is just absolutely spectacular. So I just wanted to give a public kudos to everybody involved in both of those organizations, because it's spectacular and very cool. And then on the last bit, I'd like to give my moment and acknowledgement to the Memorial Day and the remembrance for everybody who has participated in our safety and freedom and our well-being here in the United States. And I just hope everybody has a safe and happy Memorial Day, and that's all I have.
Thanks, Carmen. Troy?
A couple things. One is it's election night, and as we talk about, involvement in our community and our system of government, the most important thing that you can do is to vote. Is to show up, put your voice in. It doesn't feel like it seems like much, but it does count. So get out and vote, and it doesn't matter what your viewpoint or what your opinion is. That's why we have the individual vote. So I just want to encourage everyone to remember that and to participate, and that is your strongest voice. Second, I want to echo Councilman Farmer and Councilman Matthews in recognition of Memorial Day, and I just want to give a real heartfelt thanks to everyone who served in any capacity, and for those that have given their lives in the service of what we all get to enjoy every day. And third, I wanted to say, Harper, I think you do a great job. I love your sense of humor, and you do a great job in front of people, and that's just going to keep getting better. So thanks.
All right, thanks. So I wanted to also reiterate or iterate like Troy did, that I hope everyone voted, and I appreciate everyone running. It's important that we have people step up and do that, and then we have some initiatives on there, and we'll all see what happens. But anyway, everyone's participation in it is important, and so voting is also great. I had the opportunity to attend Bay Area Hospital's 50th anniversary this Sunday. It was well attended, and a video told how the hospital was built and what it had gone through to be what it is today. It's the largest employer that we have in the county, and we're fortunate to have it here. Two individuals were instrumental in the Bay Area Hospital's existence, John Whitty and Rudy Jewell. And after the ceremony, Rudy Jewell came up and talked to me. And to put it in perspective, Rudy Jewell was basically from North Bend, not basically, he's from North Bend and supported that aspect in North Bend, and John Whitty, Coos Bay. And so when Rudy came up and told me what a fantastic job the city of Coos Bay has done, and I wanted to pass that on to the council and staff, because it's really meant a lot coming from Rudy, a special individual that's been in this community for a long period of time. So I appreciated those comments of how we've developed, he said, and made good strides, and he looks for us to continue on. I also want to take this time to address the Mingus Park pool that Jamie did. I agree on the Mayor's Walk. This came about, and citizens got involved and donated the money to make this happen, to cover the whole cost. And it all started with just a suggestion, putting a fund together, and someone would donate, and many people donated. And I'm sorry I was not able to be there, Jamie, to participate in the celebration. So anyway, I think that's great. I also want to mention that, our area isn't perfect. We have a lot of issues that we're having to deal with on a constant basis, but that's what we do as a council and a staff, and we continue to work on it. But even with all our faults, I think it's important to recognize what a wonderful area that we have for the locals and the visitors. I had the opportunity to go out to John Tapas Park, and I got an inflatable kayak and was able to go around there, and it was great. The kayak launch was a great operation. I saw people fishing and on the boat in the lake. I saw people walking, biking, and everyone was enjoying themselves. So anyway, it's a great spot to live and be. I also want to take this time, with Memorial Day coming up, to recognize those that have served us, and we're fortunate to have a country that we do and the ones that serve us, and so I want to give them my consideration, and I will end my comments with that. Mike, we're done with all the comments. So thank you for your participation. Anyway, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you again. Have a good evening.